So I guess we're ready to get started. My name is Charity. I am the owner here of Holistic Wellness Center, and the reason for the masterclass that you all signed up for today is on the topic of cancer. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into my story in a little bit, but I want to start off with why I decided to put this class on, okay? So the reason for doing it is because this is kind of a bold statement, but I believe it to be true, and that's what the purpose of this class today is, to kind of show you how this can be done, okay? So I believe that you can heal cancer naturally in 6 months or less without a suitcase of supplements or mortgaging your house to take a trip to a healing center in Mexico. And I believe that to be true, but it takes some very particular actions to take, and that's what I'm going to show you today, okay? So the old way of healing cancer, okay? So this is what is commonly told to us in a lot of ways. Growing up, you hear all sides. We are told that you can heal cancer with surgery, chemo, and radiation, right? That's the conventional way of doing things. Or even on the natural side, we're told if you change your diet, if you take certain supplements, or you do certain modalities, like for instance, we have some, like right behind here is PMF red light, right? We have a sauna, we have different modalities here, that you can heal cancer that way. But I'm going to show you a different way, and that is healing cancer with connection, okay? And that's what I'm going to bring to you today. So this way of healing, if there's certain things that, if this is you, this may not be a good fit for you, okay? So if you're looking for a quick fix, then this will not work, okay? If you're unwilling to change your beliefs and actions, then this way is probably not for you as well. If you would prefer to stay in victim mode, then this way is not for you. If you don't believe that healing is possible, then there's a good chance this way will not produce the results that you want. And lastly, if you don't want to heal. Now you're probably thinking everyone with cancer wants to heal, but what I've learned along the way is sometimes we say that, but sometimes down deep, there's a reason why we may not want to heal. But some of our needs are getting met by staying with cancer. Okay, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into that. So if that's for you, then just know that this probably is not the path that you're probably going to embark on, and that's okay. But if you are, let me get that window out of the way. If you are ready for a transformation, if you really want to transform your health and your life, this is a great place to go. If you're willing to change your belief patterns, okay, you just have to be willing, then this can work. And if you're willing to take consistent action, okay, it does require participation. So if you're willing to take action, if you're willing to take complete ownership of your health. So that's the opposite of staying in victim mode, is you actually take responsibility for your health. And if you actually want to live your life and you want to have life more abundantly, if you really want that, then these principles, if you apply them, will work. So I'm going to give you a little back story on how I got to this point. So about 10 years ago, I got the call that my dad had been diagnosed with cancer. And it was the first time that I had someone like close in my family. And so it was all new, right? I remember feeling a little bit afraid. I was older, I had my own family, and you're busy in life. But then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this kind of stops everything. Like, what does this mean? Is he going to die? And I have been naturally minded for a long time. So then my wheels start turning, like, okay, like, what do you do now? What do you know, do you go to the doctor? Do you not? Like, and my dad chose to do it naturally. And he was able to reverse cancer at home. And that was really inspiring to me. It kind of planted a seed that actually it's not a death sentence. You can actually heal. But then it came back. So then my dad got cancer again, and then I started questioning everything all over again. Why did it come back? Right? There was more to the story. And then about 8 years ago, my grandmother was diagnosed with breast cancer for the third time. And the first 2 times I was really young, and like one time, the first time I wasn't even born. The second time I was like 9. Really wasn't, even really informed about a lot of it. She did the conventional way. But this time I was older, and we were really, really close. I had become really close to my grandmother in high school, and she knew, like, when I would always go down to visit her in Florida, we would be doing all this stuff together, health stuff. She'd be trying this recipe, this thing, or whatnot. So we were always talking health-wise, and she reached out to me and said, I don't want to do it the way I did it before. Can you help me? And so that night, I ordered my first cancer book. It was The Metabolic Approach to Cancer by Dr. Naisha Winters. And it was mostly on the ketogenic way of eating diet and some supplements and stuff. And that's where it kind of started for me, where I started going deeper. I was like, I want to understand. And so I just began studying. I would go down and visit her. We would try all these different things. And shortly after that, I opened up the clinic here. And it just so happened, because I had been studying all of these different things, I started working with more cancer clients. And I started learning more and started trying to apply what I was learning. And I thought, I'll recreate what they do in Mexico. I'll create it here. Because why do you have to go to Mexico, right? Like, we can just do all these therapies here and people can get better. And so that's kind of the way that I was growing the clinic, adding on pieces that I was reading about and studying about and trying to help my grandmother with. And in that time, I became a naturopath. So a traditional naturopath doctorate program, which I don't prescribe medications. I'm not a licensed medical doctor. It's a doctorate in holistic naturopathic ways. And I kept working with more cancer clients, but one thing I realized with my grandmother, that there was more to the story than the physical components. So she was juicing, she had a sauna in her garage, she made all her food from scratch, but she wasn't getting better. And I remember having conversations with her, and I had just started my own emotional healing journey about this time. When I opened up the clinic, 3 months later, I embarked on the biggest life change that I had ever been through. And I realized I was missing a piece. And the cancer, she ended up passing. And when that happened, it really struck something deep within me, that there's something deeper beyond the physical components of healing cancer that has to be looked at. And so I went through I kept learning, but I started taking some training in this deeper component that we're going to talk about today, the emotional healing component. And I worked alongside Paul Leenders on the root cause training. And that really helped me understand the whole picture a lot better. That without this piece, yes, like my dad, you can push cancer back, but then it will come back if it's not addressed, okay? And so now I'm shifting how I work with my clients in a different way, really focusing now on the most important piece, and that's what I want to share with you guys today. Because when I started, my goal is to be as authentic as possible. Like, I want to show up here at the clinic and with my clients as I would for myself or my own family. And so I'm just sharing what I've learned in that time, what I believe can be the most impactful and shift the needle the quickest. So let's cover a few myths, okay? Here's a myth, that cancer is genetic, or it happens randomly when the cells go rogue. Has anyone heard this before? Mm-hmm. Right? We don't really know why. You have the BRCA gene, you have XYZ gene, like my grandmother had the BRCA gene, and I remember with this big talk in my family, we all need to go get tested. But then what? What do you do when you get tested, right? Like, my cousin went and got tested, she was positive, but like, do you just go get a mastectomy? And some people do, right? We've seen those stories in the news of stars going and getting their mastectomies because they have a gene, right? So there's an idea out there that says cancer is genetic, and if you have this gene, you're going to get cancer. There's another myth that says there's no guarantee that you can heal. Just manage the symptoms until you die. I've seen this a lot where people will come in and they'll say, the doctors told me I have 6 months to live, so I would like to die with less pain. And that is their mindset, because they have been told that they can't heal. So they just prepare to die, okay? Another one is that cancer must be fought and battled with. Things from the outside, whether it's chemo, radiation, or even on the natural side, whether it's supplements and modalities. But the idea, the mindset, it has to be fought. and it has to be a battle. Have you ever heard that before? Someone is battling cancer, someone is fighting cancer. Now, I'm gonna walk you through an exercise. You don't have to participate. It's completely your choice. But I'm gonna walk you through a way to ask your body if that's what it wants you to do, okay? So if you're open to it and if you want to do this, all you have to do is stand up, okay? And what you're going to do is, this is called a sway method of testing. You can ask your body a question of anything and it will tell you an answer of yes or no. Stephen knows this technique. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. It's helpful when I do this to close my eyes, that way I'm not focused on everything else in the room, but it's entirely up to you. You don't have to close your eyes, okay? But I just prefer to do it that way. And what I want you to do is just to kind of take a deep breath and take everything off your mind. And hang on just a second. Oops. I just want to make sure, just realized. I want to make sure that I actually let everyone in the room in Zoom. I don't think I did. Hang on. Hang on just a second. Did I start the wrong meeting? I did. Yeah, they're coming in now. I started the wrong Zoom meeting. Hello, everyone.
Rewind.
Sorry, y'all. I hit start on the wrong meeting, so I've been chatting away and just had an instinct to check it. So, my deepest apologies. I'm gonna go back to my screen here and share the screen. Okay. And we'll make sure that it's recording. All right. Well, thank you all for being patient with me. It should automatically record, but I just want to.
On the top it says stop recording, so I think you are.
Stop share or stop recording?
Underneath where the red is, what does it say? David, can you read that?
That's screen sharing.
Yeah, I'm screen sharing. I just hit recording, so now we're good. We're on recording now. Okay. All right, perfect. So we're back in the room. We can go back to this here. Thank you all. Okay, so we're back to, we're gonna ask our body. Okay, so just take a big deep breath. So what I'm gonna have you do is I'm gonna have you use some of these words that we have here on the screen, okay? And I just want you to see if you notice if your body shifts a little bit forward or a little bit backwards, okay? So the first one that I want you to say is battle.
Battle.
Which way does your body move when you say the word battle?
Back.
Forward.
Now say the word fight.
Fight.
And which way do you move?
Forward.
All right, now we're gonna swap it around and I'm gonna have you say the word heal.
Heel.
And I'm also gonna have you say the word love.
Love.
And do you notice if your body moves at all? Which way does it move?
Forward.
Now, if you were opposite, don't panic. It just means your electricity in your body is going in the opposite direction, and you can shift and change that. That's your polarity. But what that is you're asking your nervous system a question, and your nervous system in your body is answering. So you can sit down now. That's my little exercise. Okay. So the reason I have you do that is because your body doesn't want to be fought. It doesn't want to be battled with. Your body wants to heal, and it wants your love. So this myth that cancer must be fought and battled from things on the outside puts you at war with the very thing that's trying to help you. And that mindset means that we go to war with our body. And your body doesn't like that. It has to work against that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very different perspective, but the words that we use are very, very important because our cells are listening to the words that we say. Okay, so that's another myth. So let's talk about what you just accessed just there was your nervous system. Okay, you can ask your nervous system a question and it will tell you. So your nervous system is the key. There are two sides to your nervous system. Okay, you've got the sympathetic side of your nervous system. This is where we stay in survival. Okay, this is where we survive, traumatic things, eventful things. It's what we call the sympathetic side or the gas mode of the body. Okay, so to get here today to this workshop, probably some of you drove, maybe you drove with a friend, but either way, you were in a car, I'm guessing, and you engaged the gas. Right, and that's great because you got here, because if you didn't engage the gas, you wouldn't have gotten here today. So it's a good thing, it's not a bad thing. But you also have the brake mode, and the brake mode is very important because if you only put your foot on the gas to get here today, what would have happened? You would have crashed. You wouldn't have gone very far, okay? You would have been bumped into something. So the body's nervous system has two branches. It's got the gas mode, where it gets us places, and we go and do things, and then it has the brake mode, okay? So in the brake mode in the body is where we heal. We do not heal in survival mode, in the gas mode, but we get places. We get up in the morning, we go to work, we do projects. It's great, we get stuff done. But you're not healing. You're not rejuvenating cells. You're not doing that work then, right? You are actually living your life. So I want to talk about, this is the parasympathetic side. This is the healing mode of the body. When the body goes into the parasympathetic side of the nervous system, it does healing. So let me explain this. Brought it with me today. Here it is. Has anyone ever used one of these things?
Yeah.
They're like evil things in the kitchen. Has anyone been cut on one of these before? I have been cut on one of these before. In fact, when I got this out of the kitchen today, it was on the very top shelf so my kids don't reach it because, they're a little dangerous. But one time I was actually preparing a meal for here and I cut my finger really deep on this and my thumb began to bleed. Now, have you ever cut yourself in the kitchen before? No,
Yeah.
right? When you cut yourself in the kitchen, does the cut heal?
Not immediately.
Not immediately, but can it heal?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Do we ever question that it's not going to heal?
No.
We just believe that it's a cut, and what heals the cut?
Our body.
Yeah, your body heals the cut. Like there's really, you just have to give it time and the cut will heal because that's what the body does. The body knows how to heal. Now, we see a cut and we see the scab form and we know that it heals. And in just that same way that the body can heal a cut, the body can heal anything. The body is a self-healing organism. That's how we were created, but it only heals when this is engaged, your parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, so this is where we digest our food. This is where we stimulate bile, which is how we detoxify. Like, this is where the magic happens for free if you engage this side. Okay, so then the question becomes, what keeps us from getting into the parasympathetic nervous system? So, oh, my picture is not up down here. It was. It said a smoke alarm. Okay, so we're gonna pretend there's a smoke alarm over up there. Okay, I don't know if there is one in here in the room or not. But Does everyone have a smoke alarm at their house?
Yes.
Yes. What is a smoke alarm's job?
To say that there is smoke or fire.
Yeah, like if,
Warnings.
maybe you're cooking in the kitchen or someone in your house is cooking in the kitchen and all of a sudden,
Should I go ask them if they would give us a little bit?
I think they're having their regular scheduled service. I didn't think about that, so it's okay.
Yeah, they're having their Sabbath, celebration.
So a smoke alarm is designed to let us know when there's something wrong, right? Is it a bad thing when it goes off?
No.
Is it annoying sometimes?
Yes.
Yeah. Because sometimes it goes off and there's no real fire per se, it's because there's a lot of smoke, right?
Yep.
Right? So when the smoke alarm goes off, you have two options. What are the two options?
Open the house to ventilate or
Yeah.
turn it off.
Has anyone ever taken batteries out of a smoke
Yeah.
alarm? Get it to stop, right? You can turn off the alarm by taking out the batteries, but did you resolve the problem by taking out the batteries?
No.
No, you turned off the alarm, okay? But you still have to figure out why the smoke alarm is coming out. Is there a fire? Is there smoke in the kitchen? Right? Why is the alarm going off? That is very important. In the body, your nervous system has an alarm. Okay? This is what we often call anxiety. This is often what we call, like when your heart rate goes up, this is what we call stress. That is your nervous system in the gas mode, in the sympathetic mode, telling you something is wrong, and I'm trying to get your attention. Okay? That's your alarm. It's not a bad thing. It's there to actually help you. So we don't need to hate it. We just need to pay attention. Now we have two options. One is to suppress it, right? One is to say, okay, I don't like this alarm going off, so I'm gonna take off the batteries, right? We can numb that signal with something. We can numb it with medication, we can numb it with a supplement, we can numb it with a modality, or we could go deeper and say, I wonder why my body is putting the alarm on. Does that make sense? What smoke do I need to clear out? Okay, so that's where we're gonna go a little bit deeper. So how do we do this, right? How do we help our bodies go into the parasympathetic mode to heal? Well, healing cancer with connection, the first step is with nature. Nature has a beautiful way of calming our nervous system. Okay, nature created by God is designed to do this. So first step one is reconnect back to nature. So how do we do this? Well, let's talk about nutrition. Nutrition is one way. Does anyone here have a diesel? Diesel? A few? Okay, a few people. Okay, would you put gasoline in your diesel engine?
I have by accident. And my husband almost had a heart attack.
Doesn't run very long? No? Bad idea? A little clunky? Okay, that's what happens when we put the wrong fuel in our body, right? If we put the wrong fuel, AKA processed foods, lab-based foods, that's what can happen. Our body starts to get a little clunky. It doesn't work as well because we weren't designed to digest processed foods. There's a lot of chemicals and stuff, okay? So we need to shift everything in our life back to nature because that's how God created it. God gave us everything that we need to heal in nature, okay? So if we want to heal, then we have to line our bodies back up to the way that we were intentionally created, okay? Step one is nature. Okay, food. The next one is circadian rhythm is another way. So what does that mean?
Good sleep.
Good sleep, yeah. So see these lights above us? These wonderful fluorescent lights? Okay, so are these found in nature?
No.
No, they're not, right? We all can agree that these lights are not natural light.
We need to change it to
Right?
yellow.
We need to change them to yellow. We have some back in the other room, we put little things on top of them so they're not as abrasive, but fluorescent light is very opposite natural light, the frequency and the spectrum, okay? In fact, the study that they convinced us all that the sun causes cancer, they actually used indoor lighting on mice, and they got cancer after being under the indoor lighting for 8 hours. And then they told us it was the sun that caused cancer. But anyways, that's another side story. But all that to say, these lights in here go against our natural circadian rhythm. Okay, so we need to line our bodies back up to the way that nature has it. When it's light outside, we're awake. When it's dark, we go to sleep. And we match our light environment. Okay, that's kind of in a nutshell the circadian rhythm principles. Next one is clean hydration, right? This is very important. It's a physical need that we have, is to be hydrated with good, clean water. Have you ever read on what's in your water? There's a lot of things that are not natural in our water. So cleaning up your water that you drink is very important, okay? Your body needs water in order to clean and hydrate and function properly for nerve function, so many functions. It's a fundamental need that we all have, is good hydration. Next one is movement. We're all meant to move. We're all meant to move in some way or another, okay? So movement moves toxins through, it moves the cortisol through, it helps your nervous system. Movement, breath, how we breathe also impacts our nervous system, right? If we're shallow breathing, it's because our nervous system is in that fight or flight, sympathetic go mode, okay? And then proper rest at the proper time is also very important. So these pillars, these principles here are ways that we can connect to nature so that our nervous system can do the deeper work. But it's not the only thing. This is one of the four that we need to work on. One is nature. The next one is connection back to yourself, okay? So what you just did, that exercise that we did a minute ago, was connecting back with your body and your nervous system to ask it a question, and it responded, right? Well, in that same way, often what happens is, all the way back when you were really, really little, sometimes our parents may not have known how to connect with us emotionally. And our nervous system gets wired for survival in those formative years. And so we kind of become numb and we disconnect. Now, why that's impactful is that then when we start to feel emotions, we kind of stop it, and either we suppress it because we don't know how to feel safe with those emotions. And so part of healing cancer, or this is also for any chronic illness, these principles work no matter what label, but is actually reconnecting back and saying, what am I feeling, right? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling angry? Like, just being okay with feeling how you feel. But sometimes when we grow up, our parents not sure what to do with that feeling, right? So they tell us, don't cry, or don't be mad, right? Because they're not sure what to do with it. So learning how to experience your emotions without suppression is really important. Now, sometimes when we're really young, things that happen in our life, we begin to think away about it, okay? We either get the message as a young child that maybe we're not good enough, maybe that we're not safe, maybe we don't matter, that we're not important because of how that interaction played out with our parents. And then we have this belief about our identity that keeps running in the background, right? And that belief drives our actions. So part of healing is experiencing your emotions and deciding, does that feel good to me? Do I want to change the belief about who I am if it's not serving you well? Along this comes fear, guilt, and shame. These things can keep us from healing. If there is guilt driving your behavior, or there's fear, or there's shame, you can heal that. You don't have to stay with that. But if you don't face it, and you don't heal it, and you don't process it, then that causes your nervous system to keep putting that alarm out. And when that alarm is going, remember, you're surviving, but you're not healing if the alarm is on. And these are some things that keep your alarm on, okay? Another way is spending time alone. Spending time alone allows you to connect back to yourself. Because when you're alone, there's no distractions. And then you begin to feel what's been stuffed down for a long time. And the important thing is that you're okay with that. You begin to feel it, right? You begin to stay with it. This is a publication that was done in Harvard. And it was actually a little bit more recent, which I just recently learned about this particular one. But it says they actually did a study on emotion suppression, increasing the risk of cancer and death when you suppress your emotions. And so in this one, let's say the exact amount, I think it was like 2.4 times your risk of early death when you suppress your emotions. Now, I'm of the belief that if there's a chronic illness, especially cancer, it's 100%. We're suppressing something to survive. But it's very fascinating that they're starting to do more work in this area that's showing, wow, this really matters. Like, we can do all of this other treatment, but what you do with your emotional well-being makes a difference in the outcome. Okay, so here's another pillar, healing cancer with connection to God. So this can be really sometimes a little tricky, because there's a lot of different varying beliefs when it comes to our relationship with God. And a lot of the times there's a lot of hurt in this category that can we kind of filter things through. So a couple things that I have found to be helpful is sometimes we have to look at our beliefs about who God is. Because if there's been people that have represented God in our past that have hurt us, then we can feel like that's who he is, and it's really not. So, but connecting to God, because he is the one that created your body. He's the only one that created your body. I didn't create your body. The doctors didn't create your body. God created you in his image. So therefore, he has the solutions in nature for us to heal, right? He knows how that works. And your body knows how to heal when we connect back. So part of it is receiving unconditional love from God. Like, he is the source of all love and guidance. And so that's very important, that as you connect back to yourself, you also connect back to God. That he is not a punishing father that wants to hurt you, but he actually wants to guide you. And connecting back to him allows you to get really clear on your path and your journey. And the way that I view it is focusing on connecting to God, not on religion. Okay, now if you attend church, that's certainly your choice. But what I would encourage you to do is, if you don't attend church, it's okay too. Focus on your relationship, focus on your connection to God. And you can heal if you will keep that your focus. Because part of healing is also accepting forgiveness and giving forgiveness. If we hold resentment, it affects our liver and our gallbladder. So if we're holding on to that emotion and we don't release that and truly come to a place of forgiveness, it can be really hard to heal. So part of healing is actually receiving forgiveness for when we need it, but also letting it go to other people as well. Another thing of connecting to God is accepting abundance and healing. Like, he truly wants to make your life awesome. Like, that's what he's trying to help us do. And so sometimes whether it's cancer or a chronic illness, we can kind of sometimes get the mindset that maybe he doesn't want me to heal. Maybe it's not his purpose. Maybe it's not his will. But I can just tell you from what the scriptures say that he can heal the Bible says that he healed our diseases, right? If we follow his principles, he will keep us free from diseases. He wants you to heal. You have a purpose. So accepting that and then taking action where it's needed to change the stressors in your life, you can heal, because that's how he created your body.
That's one of the biggest things that he did while he was here. He healed people.
He did. But in fact, I think it was John 5, before he healed the one lady he asked the lady, do you want to heal? Do you want to be made whole? Again, back to the question, do you want to heal? Because if you don't want to heal, that's okay. But that's part of the process too, is you actually want to. Because then when you heal, what are you going to do with your life? Right? What purpose are you going to have? What are you going to go out in the world and do? You have to have a vision, right? You have to have a purpose, because if you don't have a vision, the people perish. So having a vision for your future, having a dream that you build out, having something to live for is very important. And staying connected to God will help you learn how to build a future, because it's different for all of us. We all have different paths and different skills and talents and things to bring to the world. So connecting to yourself and to God will allow that to kind of come up and you fulfill it. Another important principle is learning effective prayer. So a lot of the times I hear a lot of people say, I'm praying for healing. But sometimes we don't realize that sometimes we pray out of fear. And effective prayer is praying as if it's already happened. And that's a really important, when we pray as if it's already happened. That's like Mark 11:24 is like, when you pray, believe that you've already received it. That's how we're supposed to pray, in that mindset. So part of that is changing our beliefs that yes, our bodies were created to heal. God created my body. I know I can heal. Now the question is, what actions in my life do I need to change? What stressors do I need to address so that my body can do the self-healing that it does when it goes into the parasympathetic nervous system? And then the last pillar, which is healing cancer with connection to others. So in our lives, we have people around us, right? Which is a good thing. However, sometimes it can be difficult because relationships can be sometimes challenging. So it's very important, the first three pillars of healing, connecting to nature, connecting to yourself, and connecting to God. When those three are strong, then we can connect to others in a positive way. But if we're suppressing emotions, if we're really angry because someone has crossed our boundaries, let's say, right, which is an appropriate response. If someone crosses your boundaries, you feel angry, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually healthy. So part of healing is establishing healthy boundaries so that you can interact with others in a positive way, not in a harmful way. Another thing is when we connect with others, communicating compassionately. There's some principles around this. How do we communicate what we're feeling and what we need, and how do we ask for what we need in a healthy way? And one of the most important things is removing unhealthy attachments. So as we grow from a young person, right, eventually as we grow, we become an independent adult. And we're supposed to become an independent adult, and that's natural, right? You then go off into your life. But what can happen is if our parents didn't know how to heal, and they were operating from unhealed wounds inside of them, then what can happen is we become attached. And we don't really truly become fully independent. And then that attachment keeps us from living our life, right? We're attached in an unhealthy way. And then sometimes this happens, maybe we start, and we get into a marriage or a partnership, and because we haven't healed our wounds, now we're attached in an unhealthy way to our partner or our children or somebody else. So we want positive connection and community, but we don't want unhealthy attachments. We're all supposed to live our independent life, right? And then our children, they grow up. And it's sometimes hard to watch them grow up and leave, but that's what they're supposed to do, right? The important thing is that we heal and we have a life that we love. We continue living our life, and then we let them enjoy their life, right? Sometimes that didn't happen in our childhood growing up. And that's the part that needs to be healed, is where you fulfill your own needs so that you can become a truly independent person. Okay, so let's kind of review just a minute. So the old way of healing cancer, right? We have the conventional way. We have the chemo, the radiation, the surgery. Cut it out, burn it out, poison it. That's one way to go, okay? Then if you go to the natural side, you can change your diet, and eating real food is helpful, right? It's supportive to put the right fuel in the body. You can take supplements and herbs, and you can do a lot of modalities. However, the most important piece, if you want to heal your body naturally, is taking action toward the stressors in your life, helping your nervous system feel safe and loved and nourished. That is really important. If you choose to do that, if you go all in and you take action and you're really honest with yourself, then your body will move and will self-heal. It will move out of that survival mode. So I want to talk about something. Has anyone ever stepped on a nail before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I remember as a young girl, I stepped on a nail and went through my sneaker. And if you step on a nail and you go in the house and the nail's still in your foot, but you take Tylenol, you take ibuprofen, or maybe you're more natural and you take ginger and turmeric and anti-inflammatories and willow bark and all these other anti-pain things, but you don't get off the nail. What's going to happen?
It's gonna become harder.
Yeah, I mean, the pain's not going to stop because the signaling is actually the appropriate response, right? You step on the nail, the body's like, that doesn't feel good, so I'm going to give you some pain, and the pain's not going to stop until you get off the nail, right? Is the pain a bad thing?
No, it's a good thing.
It's a good thing that it's there because it's telling us there's
Get off the
something
nail.
that needs to change. You need to get off the nail. And no amount of suppression, naturally or conventionally, is going to actually resolve it until you make an action, until you take a change. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Well, in the same way in the body, pain is there to tell us something is wrong. It's part of the alarm system going off. If you have chronic pain in a certain area, that's your body trying to get your attention. It's not because your body hates you. It's actually the opposite. It's because the body's way of communicating is only through symptoms. It has no other way. So what it will do is it will try a symptom out, and if we suppress it in any way without addressing it, it's gonna stay there, or it might get even louder, right? So maybe you have chronic back pain, maybe you have chronic shoulder pain, maybe you have chronic knee pain. It's there for a reason. So before you suppress it, conventionally or naturally, stay curious. And if you can stay curious, then your body, you can work with your body. And you can begin to start, okay, where is my body out of alignment with nature? And what am I eating? Am I getting proper sleep? How's my circadian rhythm? Check your physical needs. But then you can ask yourself the other deeper question. So that little handout that I gave you all there in front of you, the second question there is, someone want to read it? What's the second question?
What stressor in your life feels most unresolved right now?
What stressor in your life feels most unresolved right now? So this is an opportunity for you, maybe this weekend, maybe later today, or even right now, to really say, okay, if I let go of what anybody else might think, and if I was just really honest with myself, what's my biggest stressor in my life? Is it in a relationship? Is it in a job? Is it in my finances? What's my biggest stressor right now? And the key is you have to be completely honest. Okay? And you identify it. And then you decide, okay, what is one action that I'm going to take to work toward resolution? Right? It could be one of those 4 things. Connecting back to nature, maybe just going outside, taking some deep breaths and walking in nature, taking a hike, putting your feet on the grass, and connecting back. Maybe that's what you need. Maybe you just need more rest and playtime in your life. I don't know. We would have to dive into your particular stressor. Or maybe it's connecting back to yourself and getting all your suppressed emotions out. Okay? Maybe it's connecting back to God and finding a purpose. Maybe it's breaking attachments that are not healthy and creating healthy boundaries. But somewhere, it's in one of those 4 containers that you can apply to start resolving it. But the first thing is you can't avoid it. You have to address it, because problems don't go away on their own most of the time, okay? It requires our participation, because that's actually how we grow, right? We grow through challenges. So it's not there, life doesn't give us challenges because it hates us or it's trying to get us. It's there because we actually will become wiser if we will work through the challenge and grow from it and experience it and learn wisdom from it. It will make us into the person that we're meant to be. And so that's what cancer is. It's really a wake-up call that says, hey, something in your life is out of alignment. And if we can connect back and take correct action while believing that we can heal, because our mindset is big, right? If we believe that we can heal and then we take actions because we actually believe it, then the body is like, awesome, I've been waiting to do this for your whole life, and I will be your best friend, and I'm gonna help you do it. And all of a sudden, your body starts moving in the healing direction. But if we believe our body can't heal, or we believe we're fighting our body, then it becomes like you're fighting the very thing that's trying to help you. And it's like an uphill battle. It's very, very challenging. So, with that, are there any questions? Yes.
Okay, let's see if we can discover what may be the problem here. I have always wanted green lights on the streets everywhere I go for me. I can't live my life any longer unless I get the button that the fire department has to control the traffic lights so I can live a stress-free life and not have cars and not have traffic lights bother me anymore. Or maybe just maybe I can come up with something like a paradigm shift and learn to adapt to this crazy environment that I'm having difficulty
Or you can move into the country where there's no lights.
So you hit a good point that I'm glad you brought up, because it's not what happens to us, it's our perceptions and beliefs,
Yes,
right? So you can see a green light or a red light is one of two things, right? You can see a red light, every time you see a red light that goes, I'm gonna be late, I'm gonna, it's gonna take me longer to get there, this is a bad thing. Or, well, it's another red light, okay, I can practice my deep breathing right now. Like, you can choose your reaction, especially to things that are completely out of your control.
I've got a crying baby, and I can't stand a crying baby, and some crazy people will put the baby in a microwave and kill it. I mean, it's crazy what some people do to solve their problems. It's insane. I mean, you talk to people in law enforcement, and you wonder why they're stressed out. They see things that will drive you crazy. We have to figure out a way to, manage paradigm shifts to not be so upset. A 2-year-old child's gonna do what? What a 2-year-old child always does. We have to adapt, don't we?
Well, partly too, what can happen is a 2-year-old child is going to express their emotions, usually unfiltered. And so for a parent that is not healed inside, they may not know how to show up emotionally mature to a 2-year-old cry. Especially if when they were young, they weren't allowed to cry, right? Or they were shamed for crying. And so how do they give love and connection when they didn't receive that? They don't know how to.
I have family members in my own family that are over 50 years of age, and they've yet to get past age 2. In their emotional
Maturity?
in their emotional acceptance of an environment in a world that's not just the way they want it. A 2-year-old wants everything the way they want it.
And there's reasons for that response, and it's because their brain is stuck back at the age when they experienced something traumatic, that their body said that wasn't safe, and so their nervous system is keeping them there, keeping the alarm system on, but back at that age. And so part of that is going back and healing those wounds and allowing your body to know that, okay, maybe I didn't get what I needed back when I was a child, and it's not about blame, it's not about blaming our parents, but recognizing, again, being willing to accept the reality that may have been what happened to me, but now I'm 30, 40, 50, 60, and I can give myself what I need that I didn't get as a child. And that's how you heal that, is you give yourself the love, the safety, the importance. You give it to yourself, and you don't wait on anyone to come and rescue you, because there is no one coming to rescue us.
The emotional intelligence will grow.
It will. When we take responsibility and ownership for our health, we fulfill our own needs without guilt, without shame, right? So that means that when we need to rest, for example, this is a big one that I see with clients, we rest without guilt. But if we were raised, when we are young, if we were raised to believe that you don't sit down, that means you're lazy, guess what? Your nervous system thinks, I can't rest, or I'm lazy, right? That's a belief about ourselves. And then when we don't get the proper rest at the proper time, our bodies can't heal. Do you see how it's connected? That's the way that our nervous system was wired back here, it just plays on repeat over and over and over again. But then we can choose at any time to say, you know what? That's not working for me right now. I want to stop that pattern. And all you have to do is be willing to change and say, you know what? I'm willing. I am going. This is what we call self-love, right? It's not an egotistical, pompous way. It's actually just saying, I'm going to fulfill my own needs. That when I need rest, I'm going to get rest. And when I need nourishment, I'm going to nourish myself. And when I need hydration, when I need movement, when I need to cry, I'm going to cry. Not because there's anything wrong with me, just because I'm a human. And sometimes sad things happen. We have loss. And so we cry instead of suppressing it. Because the more that we get it out, then we let that emotion go through us, and we can then move on. But if we don't, we suppress it, guess what's gonna happen? That nervous system is gonna put off that alarm. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, you're like, why am I so depressed? I feel all this anxiety. it's because we stuffed it all down instead of experiencing it in the moment because we didn't know how, we didn't feel safe. And this is the root work that your body can heal. But as you can see, it's not always easy. It's simple, but it's not always easy. Because then we have to address our fears. And this is where I am here to support you. If you want support, you can take this information and you can go home and start applying it. You can list out everything in your life that's bothering you. Be completely honest and say, okay, what am I willing to do about them? And just start thinking of everything that comes to mind. I'm gonna take this action, I'm gonna change this, and then when things come up, you address it, you face it, you work through it, you don't give up, you persevere, and you resolve things, right? And you line your body back up to nature, and you can heal. But if you want some help in that process, that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you if you're looking for that support.
And I would love to add to that sometimes children, parents, spouses are not okay with that. Even doctors are not okay with us taking action towards healing, and that's okay. They don't need to align with what we need and what we want and what we're learning.
Yes, it needs to be your own choice, right? Part of this healing, right, as you said at the beginning, is taking ownership of your health. So when you take ownership for your health, that means that not everyone is going to agree with you. And that can be hard if you're a chronic people pleaser. Like, that's what I had to learn. But that started, again, back earlier in my childhood when it's like, well, if I don't please someone and they're disappointed, it's my fault. Right? But then that's a belief that says I'm responsible for somebody else's emotion, and that's not true. But it's a belief that I had for a long time, right? But is it true?
No.
And so the more you can tell yourself, I'm not responsible for anybody else's emotions, I'm only responsible for me, right? I am responsible for what comes out of my mouth, I am responsible for my actions, but I cannot change anybody, and I'm not responsible for anyone else's emotions. So if I need to set a boundary, I set a boundary. Will someone be upset? Maybe. But can I do it in love? That I'm supposed to speak the truth in love, right? So you can take the action that you need to take. Does that mean that everyone's gonna be really happy with you? It doesn't always mean that. But it does mean that when you do that in love, you will heal. Like if you keep taking action, you can heal. But it's up to you. No one else has to go on the healing journey. Like, let's say you're in a relationship, or your mom or your dad or your siblings, or they don't have to change for you to heal. And that's really freeing if you think about it. Your healing journey only depends on you.
What if you're a person that can only enjoy life when you win? You win every argument, you win every sporting event, you win every activity, or else you're so depressed you can't live your life anymore. People are like that. I meet them every day, people that have to have their way. They find themselves in that situation. And so there's the two variables. One is the recipient of this behavior, and then there's the giver of this behavior, and they're both miserable.
So sometimes we seek to control.
Yes.
Because there's something in our past that was out of our control. Maybe someone crossed our boundaries in the past, and so it's an overreaction to accommodate. So now, can you change somebody's overreaching? No. The only thing you can do is set healthy boundaries.
What if you hit them with a baseball bat?
I don't think that'll go very well. Anyone else have any questions?
So, in the beginning, you said something about multiplication of cancer cells, and then you also mentioned something about removing stressors. So, can you explain? I mean, I think you're saying that cancer is a real thing, and that it's a stressor on your parasympathetic system, your body's ability to heal. Is it an overreaction of the parasympathetic reaction of the body, or is it an enemy, so to speak, of the body, something outside of the parasympathetic?
So what I believe it happens is when your body stays stuck in the sympathetic, the gas mode, cortisol mode, then the body's releasing cortisol and adrenaline, right? But it's not able to rejuvenate, repair, cleanse, detoxify, etc. Because that happens in the parasympathetic. So it's when we stay stuck over here in that go mode that cancer begins to develop. That's what I believe. Now, where cancer develops is very particular to the stressor in our life. So the body holds wisdom in very particular places. Now, just not even outside of cancer, certain emotions, certain suppressed emotions are going to affect certain organs and glands in the body. And so that's why cancer shows up at certain places. And that can also give us clues as to, oh, it shows up in my lungs, I have lung cancer, or I have chronic lung issues. Okay, there's a particular stressor, loss and grief, that is associated with the lungs. I wonder what I have suppressed in the grief category. Like, what have I lost, right? It could be a dream, it could be a person, it could be a relationship, a job, like something that you can never get back, and then you didn't know how to grieve it completely, so we suppressed it. And so that particular area gets affected because of that, because it's still in the nervous system. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it gives me a better idea of where you're coming from thinking.
How about chronic lung disease slash people that have asthma? I grew up in the early 1950s, and I heard that medical doctors' greatest expectation was that asthma was caused by an emotional, distraught approach to life. It was a mental trigger that caused asthma.
It can be someone struggling to breathe, someone struggling to flourish in life. There's also a big connection with asthma in the liver. When the liver is overburdened with toxicities, then it can show up in the lungs too.
But isn't it connected to either toxins or emotional stressors,
Yes.
or both?
Yes. It can be both. Just like we talked about the principles of nature, right? If you're eating processed foods, some of the symptoms can be the fact that you're eating foods that are not nourishing your body, right? Because those foods are gonna have toxicities. And so you're not gonna feel as well. You may have inflammation because your body's responding to the food that you're eating that's very highly processed. So, but when you eliminate the food, we see this all the time with our clients, you eliminate the food, you eat real food, all of a sudden you have more energy, more clarity, less inflammation. Does that resolve everything? Most of the time not. If it's chronic, there's usually other things that have to get worked on, but it does make a difference because you're supporting your body physically. The same thing with poisons, right? Poisons make the body sick. God did not create glyphosate and pesticides and Clorox bleach, and God didn't do that. Man did that, right? Which everything that we create kind of comes with a cost, right? What impact does that have to the body? Well, we then have a choice. We can either put poisons and toxins in the body, but then the body's going to respond trying to get them out, and we can support the body, the detoxification to get them out. And that will help you feel better, right? Absolutely. But sometimes if it's a chronic issue, it's still not enough. You got to get into the nervous system and decide, okay, what else am I suppressing? What stressors in my life am I avoiding? What feels like I'm stuck in this area? You also need to address that. So sometimes if it's more acute, like 12 weeks or less, then it can be more on the physical side. But any chronic illness is almost always has an emotional nervous system component. Okay, any other questions?
Well, on Tuesday, we talked about something rather different. We talked about how to purge all those toxins out of our system.
Yes, we were talking about that.
And that had a lot to do with how some people have all these other really bad, horrible things in their life, but they got maybe something like they're doing what do you call it, a coffee enema, and maybe somehow they're physically able to cleanse their body enough to sustain themselves.
Yes, so there are things that you can do to support detoxification, and they do have some benefit. And a coffee enema, we were talking about coffee enemas a little bit on our Tuesday meeting. Coffee enemas help the body to detoxify the liver. It's very, very effective. at that. And it actually helps your body move out of the fight or flight mode. It activates your vagus nerve into the parasympathetic. But you can do coffee enemas all day long. But if you do coffee enemas and you don't address the relationship that's stressing you out, or you don't address the job that you hate, or you don't address the belief about yourself that you're worthless, or if you don't address those things, then those other things are not enough. Because you're with your thoughts 24/7, literally 24/7 while you sleep. It's working, right? So then you have to decide, we create our reality with our thoughts, with what we believe. So that's why it's important to also look at this component, because we'll get exhausted over here, and the faster we get to here, the faster you heal. And so this is why as I said in the beginning, I believe you can heal in 6 months or less, because if you will go honestly into the areas of your stressors and you face them head on, and you have the courage and the strength, and you keep going until they're resolved, as soon as you do that, the body's gonna go full on healing for you.
It aligns.
It does, like every time. That's the brilliance of your body. And so that's what I'm encouraging you to do. Even if you don't have cancer, this is how you prevent it, right? This is how you prevent it, is when something comes up that feels unresolved, you just keep exploring, and you stay curious, and you work toward resolution. And if you get stuck, you reach out, you get support, you ask for help. You just don't suppress it, right? And don't avoid it. Because denial is not healing. Denial is suppression. Avoidance is suppression. Okay? So it's very important that we actually address the things that need to get addressed. So with that, I'm gonna wrap up with, see this here. So I am starting a new group coaching program with these concepts in mind. You don't have to have cancer to join, but if you want to learn how to prevent it and how to go step by step into the different pillars that we just went through, connection to nature, yourself, God, and others in a positive way, I'm going to be starting that. It's going to be virtual, so we're basically over a Zoom format. We have a private community on the platform called School, and we meet once a week, and then I guide you through step by step on how to do this, so you don't get stuck, so that you don't suppress it, so you actually resolve it, okay? So if you wanted some more support, I'm gonna start that on Monday, April 28th. And so basically it's weekly group coaching, then daily support in our private school community. That's where I give you step-by-step guidance. I'm building out an online course, so you can always go back and rewatch the lessons that we go over. And then if you need one-on-one support, you have access to that if you need it, okay? So if you are wanting some additional support in this, then that's the Healing Cancer with Connection that I'm starting, okay? You can join for 1 month, you can join for 9 months. It's up to you. It's $3.99 a month if you want some guided support in how to address these stressors and how to apply the natural principles of healing to your health. So if you're interested in that, that's the group name called Healing Cancer with Connection. There's a little QR code on your paper. If you scan that code, it'll take you to the school group. I'm doing a bonus session this Monday, April 21st at 7. That's when those sessions are. They're on Mondays at 7. So if you wanted to come to a session, the first session we do is something called the root cause session, where we help you walk you through exactly the most important stressor that you have to face to heal. And I walk you through how to identify what it is based on where it is in your body. So the faster you get there, the faster you heal, right? The faster you address that thing, the faster you can turn it around. So, any other questions?
Any Zoom attendees have questions?
For some reason I can't see the chat. Let's see. Does anyone have questions out in Zoom land? Oh, I see.
go to a psychologist and you have these sessions in either group session or one-on-one, and the psychologist appears to be just tearing the scab off of the wound over and over and over. If we tear the scab off of a wound, it won't heal very well.
Correct. Yes, the idea of going back to healing the wounds from your past is not to wallow in it. It's actually to resolve it. So if you're not moving toward resolution, then I would say that method's probably not a good fit.
But I'm a professional psychologist, and the more I can keep you coming forever, the better off I am financially.
Maybe, but then you have to decide if that's what you want, because you're ultimately in charge of your health, and you can choose, just like you go to a doctor, and if it's not working, or you go to a dentist and you don't like them, you switch, you stop going.
My question really is actually, do we live in the past? Do we live in the future, or do we actually live in the present?
So, the idea is to be present, but if we do not heal the past, we cannot be present.
It'll keep haunting you.
So, in order to be present emotionally with the people in your life, whether it's your kids, whether it's your partner, you have to heal the past. You have to heal the wounds, because if you don't, you're operating from them, whether you think about it or not. Subconsciously, those patterns are running. So you're running them. And so every interaction you have with the people out here is filtered through your experiences back here. So the idea is to go back and heal it so that your present interactions are from a place of wholeness, not from a place of guilt, shame, fear, and pain. Okay? Then you're living for a future. You've got a future in mind that you're building. But you also don't stay so focused on that you don't live in your present world, but you do have to have a future. We all need a future to live for.
I mean, to think about it, the ripping of the scab will be an analogy of, let's say that you have this scab that builds, but underneath the scab there's pus. If you don't rid the scab and clean it up and allow it to heal from the inside out, you're going to leave that scab covered, but the inside is rotten.
Yes, and wound healing professionals will also tell you if you use, what is the peroxide that we put on a wound? You use peroxide one time to clean. If you use it again and again, it'll destroy all the tissue. So you have to be careful not to overdo the cleansing of the wound. You gotta cleanse it. Once it's clean, let it heal, right?
That's a good point. Because once you truly resolve something, it's going to be integrated into you, right? You can't change your past. You can't. But you can integrate it, meaning you heal it, and it's part of your story. But that part of your story is actually usually becomes part of your purpose. You can help people from that part of your story, but it's now healed. It's a scar, basically, right? And so you're not running from it, but you're not operating from the pain point of it either. And then it's not something you ruminate on anymore, because you're focused on your future and you're showing up differently, right? But if you just say, well, I'm not living in the past, so I'm not going to address all of this behind me, but your body remembers it. It's in your nervous system. So we can avoid it. That's avoidance. And avoidance isn't peace, isn't healing, right? Just like your garage, right? After 30 years, if you don't ever declutter your garage, a lot of things build up, right? So that day when you decide, okay, that today's the day, we're opening it all up and we're gonna go through everything. It's gonna be a little messy. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It just means you haven't touched the garage for 30 years. So where's all this stuff gonna go? You're gonna be taking stuff out of containers and buckets and all of that stuff, right? So in that process, it's gonna feel like you're not making progress. You're like, this is we've got a bigger mess than we started with. Well, kind of, yes, but in the end, it's not gonna be a peaceful, decluttered space that you're gonna enjoy. That's the idea, is you gotta bring the stuff out to deal with, declutter it, decide what beliefs aren't serving you well, get them out of the way, adopt the new beliefs, and now you've got a clear nervous system that is operating from a place of love instead of disruption and unsafety and all of those components.
What if we make a mistake, adopt new beliefs that are wrong,
you can always try different ones, right? Just like your jacket. If your jacket doesn't fit, you just take it off and you try on a different one.
See, I practice golf all the time, and some of the shots don't work, and I have to try something else.
There you go.
I never have mastered the game.
So it's feedback. You can think of it like that, right? Are we gonna make mistakes? Yes. But if we confess our sins, he's faithful and just to forgive us. God always forgives us. But we have to admit it. If we don't own it, then we can't change and we can't grow. But if we own it, we can change and we grow and we get feedback, and now we learn how to do it this way, right? We have lights today because, who was it? Thomas Edison, I think, right? He didn't give up after he failed
1,000 times.
He just said, oh, that's the way not to do it. Let me try it again. That's the way not to do it. Let me try it again. And he kept going and he kept going. But every time it was feedback that says, okay, I'm gonna try it this way. I'm gonna try it this way. And that's what you do. You listen to your body and you're like, that doesn't feel good. Okay, let me change it. And you keep going, and if you get stuck, that's where you reach out for help, or you ask God for help, and so that you don't just stay stuck. Because staying stuck gets us in something called the freeze mode. So fight, flight, freeze, in that sympathetic response. Have you ever felt that way, where you get so overwhelmed, you're just like, I'm just gonna sit on the couch and eat ice cream. It's all gonna go away. I've done that before. It doesn't work. But in the moment, it feels good, right? But then you gotta get up and take some sort of action, right? You have to get out of freeze mode. That's what happens. We get overwhelmed, we just shut down. And so that's kind of why I created this other option is here. I want to tell you that you can heal. You don't need all the fancy stuff and supplements to heal. But it is hard work. And if you get stuck and overwhelmed, I'm here to support you in that, okay? Because staying stuck is still in that sympathetic, that's not in the healing mode. And all you have to do, that last question on your sheet, what is one action that you can take today? And if you can take one action today and one action tomorrow and the next action, if you do that, you will get out of stuck mode and you'll get back into healing mode. But you gotta keep moving. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. And I remember that song, put one foot in front of the other, that, I don't know, it's on an old Christmas track. Anyways, I used to play that back in the day when I was raising all young kids and I would get into overwhelmed mode. I would literally put that song on repeat and say, okay, what's the next thing? Just one foot in front of the other. And then soon you're gonna be walking out the door, right? That's all it takes is taking action and then holding the belief that I can heal. My body knows how to heal. God created my body to heal. I may not have all the answers today, but I'm gonna take an action that's gonna move me in that direction. Okay? Yes. Thank you. Let's see here. I think I added them in. We had some tech things from my operator error earlier, so hopefully. Okay, perfect. Okay, great. Any other questions? Yes.
So if you have more than one stressor,
Yeah.
how do you prioritize?
That's a good question. One is you can make a list and then just really say, okay, out of these maybe which one do I have an answer to right now?
Okay.
Which one can I take action on? You might start there. The other way, that sway method of testing, I don't know if you were in when we did that, but you can also ask your body, which one of these is the most important that I address first? But that might be another one, is because if you start taking action, that just can really help you internally. It's gonna, like a little snowball, it's going to give you momentum in your healing. So that's what I would probably do. Kind of like when you're paying off debt, what's the smallest one I can tackle and knock out, and that's gonna help you do the next one. Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, I can, if it's okay, I'll give an example, because
Sure.
I'm sitting here thinking about, I've got arthritis in my toes, and it's really bad, sometimes I can't walk. But, so I was trying to think of what from my past, and my mother abandoned us when we were young, and so I've got this fear of abandonment. Right now we're living with our son and a daughter-in-law, and the grandkids while our house is being built. And I noticed that I get I get all anxious and upset if they get mad at me, or I feel like they're mad at me, and I think it's the same abandonment thing, it never dawned on me before.
Yeah.
That this fear that they might, disown me or something like my mom did. But, so I was saying that so I was thinking, well, what can I do? I can't ask them not to be mad at me, because I get mad at them too, I just don't show it, I don't think. It's one of those things I step. But I could ask for communication to be better, that if they're upset, they tell me why they're upset, so I can make some changes, or maybe it's not even me, it's somebody else that they're upset with their kids or something. Is that the kind of process you're asking us to go through, to try to figure out how to resolve an issue?
Yeah, so that's really great. One, that you were able to identify that, that's really beautiful. The first thing I would say is to work on not feeling responsible for their emotions, right? So not assuming what you think they're thinking about you. So if you're concerned and there's something that maybe you had an interaction with them, maybe you could start a conversation. Hey, I've been thinking about it, and when I said this, I saw you respond this way. Is there something that do we need to talk about that more? Like if you wanted to go deeper in a conversation because you saw something, right? The compassionate communication, the nonviolent communication is a 4-step process where when you want to talk to someone about something, you can say, when I saw you do this, I felt frustrated because I need this. I need support. I need respect, whatever it is. And then you say your request. Would you be willing to do this? So you can frame it in a way that's not in a place of blame or judgment, but coming from, I'm owning my emotions. Okay, I'm feeling this way, and there's a reason why. We feel things for a reason. So you own it, and then you give them an opportunity. You can ask what you need. But I would start with really letting go of, feeling responsible for how they feel. You're only responsible for you. And then I would say to heal the abandonment wound is you're gonna have to love yourself. So make sure that you're doing things to nourish you without their participation. Don't wait for them to show up in your life. You go and fill your cup up. Meaning you go and what are the hobbies you like doing? What are the things you enjoy doing? Do you have your own hobbies? Do you have your own interests? And then you just go start doing them, fulfill it. You fill your life up with purpose and joy. That way you're not expecting them to fulfill that need for you. And then when you show up to them, it's from a place of your cup is overflowing, right? And then if you feel like there's something in between, you can always ask them. But yeah, I would work on those 2 things first. So fill your cup up, and then make sure you if you have to rewire the brain sometimes. I am not responsible for anyone else's emotions, right? How they feel is based on their whole journey. That's up to them. You're only responsible for you.
Would a good technique be thinking of also the worst case scenario? Okay, if they abandon me, if this happened, what would I do? Well,
Overcoming fear?
Correct, because then it will kind of reroute back to loving herself enough to say, well, even if I were to be in the world completely on my own, I will be okay. I have myself and I love myself enough to not be overpowered or empowered by other people's actions.
Yes, you could face, that's a great way to face your fears. So if you think on that part, yes, dissolving your fears, facing it, yeah. And in the end, the deeper component would be to go back into the memory that you have of your mom, the last memory that you had of your mom, or the first one that comes up of that you feel abandoned by her, and you can change the perspective in that memory to tell your nervous system that you're safe and that you're loved, and that can help turn off that mechanism too. Yeah. Great. Any other questions?
What if you're living in an environment where not everybody sees everything the same? And they see the same thing, but they didn't process what they saw the same. And they get into arguments and discussions and fist fights, and And then eventually we go into a period of like the 1850s where family members separate into various sides of a civil war to kill each other. I mean, in effect, what I'm asking is, how do you deal with personality differences in how we process information? People hear and see the same thing, but they don't. I've been in sales training classes where we would flash something up on the screen and then everybody in the room would write down on a piece of paper what they saw. And then we talk about what we saw and nobody hardly saw the same thing.
Yeah, it's perception. This is why, like, even our siblings, if you think about it, like, I have 5 siblings. If you asked us all how was our childhood, you would get very different responses. You would have one that would say it was the worst childhood ever. You would have one that would say it was the best. My parents made no mistakes. You know, it would range because it's our perception of what happens to us, of how we interpret it, right? It's like the lady that pulls into her garage at night, pulls in, steps out. She feels like she's stepping on a snake and she starts to scream bloody murder. Her husband comes out, opens the light in the garage, and it's the garden hose. But she perceives it was a threat, a life-threatening threat, right? It was a snake that was gonna kill her. And that's what mattered. What mattered was not that it was a garden hose. What mattered is what she believed it to be.
And the body protected her.
And the body protected her. It instantly went into survival mode. I need to get to safety. That's that sympathetic fight or flight mode. Now, if the light was off and you tell her it's okay, no, it's not okay. I'm about to get bit by a snake, right? So the key is changing the perception, adding some light to the situation can change the perspective, right? You turn on the light and you're like, oh, it's not a threat. I thought it was. And that's how you can tell your nervous system, it's not a threat anymore. I'm safe now. I can provide my own needs. I can bring safety to my own life. And shedding light on the situation, right, can help with that. And then sometimes, like we were talking about a minute ago, you go back into the memory, you begin to heal what your parents weren't able to give you. Because ultimately, they were doing the best they could with what they knew at the time. For whatever reason, from their own fear, they didn't know, their own lack of knowledge, they didn't know how to provide what we needed. So we can heal that on our own, even if your parents are not on the healing journey or they're already passed. It's okay, because your healing journey does not depend on anyone else's participation. It's entirely up to you.
So if you're a parent and you have a child that won't forgive you because you weren't the perfect parent, and you have this conflict going on, how do you, if you're in the middle of this fight, you're wearing a white and black shirt and you're a referee, how do you referee this conflict?
Well, you can only do the best that you can do, right? So if you've done wrong to someone and they bring it to your attention, then you have 2 choices, right? You can either admit it and ask for forgiveness, and then you make a change, right? Because confession without actually changing is just manipulation. It's not really repentance, right? So when someone brings a wrong to you, brings awareness, and it is truly a wrong, you can always ask for forgiveness because God always forgives. He always forgives. So if we hold on to the guilt, that's not healthy for us. That actually will affect your liver and gallbladder. So once you have asked for forgiveness, that's it. You learn and you keep living. Now, if someone else chooses to not accept that forgiveness, that is something that they will have to work through. That's their own healing journey. Okay? But being authentic is very important as parents. Like, I've had to go back to my older children, who I raised them so differently than I am my younger children now, because I didn't know what I know now. But I can't go back and change them, but I can have conversations about that, and I can share with what I'm learning, and I can show up differently now to them, right? Even as adults, to my adult children, I can show up with positive connection. I can show up from a place of more love and less guilt, right? And the more that I do that, the more I'm giving them a chance to heal, right? Hopefully, hopefully because the way that I show up, they'll have less to heal, right? That's it. That's not that we're gonna be perfect, because we all have challenges in our life to help us grow. So it's impossible to be perfect, and we can't put that expectation on us. It's just when we're brought something to our attention, we address it, we change, and then we do better. When we know better, we do better.
Are you suggesting that cutting people a little slack is a good idea?
I think giving grace is a good idea. We all love a little grace.
And you're giving them the free will that God gives us to choose to forgive us or not to choose to forgive us. We only have control over what we do. So when somebody brings it to you, you say, I'm sorry, you are making the corrections, but then if they choose to cut you off their life, that's their prerogative. And then they'll have to deal with that consequence too.
So Charity, I know that you work with cancer patients. Are you implementing this? You're finding people that are being able to their heal themselves of cancer?
So this is the area of work that I am shifting more towards. So in the past, we focused more on a combination method, and while we still do kind of offer that, as far as, you know, we do offer IV vitamin C here, let's say, right, where people come in and get a vitamin C infusion versus going conventional. And we're kind of in a shift right now of trying to have the physical tools, if you will, with the emotional, but more focused on the emotional, because what can happen is the physical things, like the infusions and the hyperbaric chambers and things like that, can become a distraction from this real deeper work, right? So we're kind of in a shift, trying to figure out where that balance is, like how to help people engage both sides equally, but more so on this side here, because we really want to help them authentically heal. So right now I'm actually working with a few cancer clients remotely, where they're not able to come in for any of the physical modalities, and we're just focused on these. And it's been really beautiful to watch them progress. Like one person I'm working with, several years his cancer's been at a standstill. It's not growing. He's been doing only natural things, but it's now we're getting to we just recently are cracking the deeper things that have been there for a while, for like 50 years, 60 years, right? And when he's doing that work is where he is seeing a physical difference. Now, that question then becomes, do you go back and get PET scans and get CT scans to prove one way or the other that the cancer is gone? Well, you can, but some people don't want to. There's certain exposure to different elements like radiation that come along with those, right? So some people go, I feel good, you know? I feel lighter, I feel more energy, I'm like feeling good. So it depends on the route that they choose to take in that regards, but.
Does it come down to the fact that the brain and the nervous system is a really very powerful function of the human body, and without getting it aligned, that you can't possibly heal?
Well, the brain, the heart, it's like coherence. It's aligning your body, right? Because sometimes we have to get out of our heads and into our hearts. We can't sometimes logically think our way to healing. We have to also connect with our feelings, right? So it's really just aligning your body, connecting back. So yeah, sometimes, you know, logically thinking about, okay, what is it that I believe? Are the true beliefs? Do I need to change my beliefs? And that's important, but then it's also just letting yourself be without having to constantly think either, right? So I don't know that I would say it's 100% brain, but aligning your heart too would also be very important.
Could there be a connection between the emotional and the physical as it relates to disease states like Alzheimer's, dementia, type 2 diabetes, cancer, heart disease, Parkinson's disease, as a collective body of circumstances that all represent the body's failure to heal?
Let me see if I understand your question. So you're basically saying, do these ideas work for any other diseases that you just mentioned?
I'm saying, is there not a connection to all of these diseases as a result of the imperfection of our emotional reaction with the buildup of cortisol and all of this this buildup as it contributes to these circumstances.
Yeah, so sometimes we may not present with the official diagnosis of cancer, but we have other symptoms that have been labeled other things, like type 2 diabetes or dementia or heart disease. Like if you look at the root causes of cardiovascular, it's the same principles, really is. Connecting back to nature, circadian rhythm, good nutrition, hydration, movement, like all of those support the heart. So when you heal, it's like you heal it all, because it's all interconnected, and all you have to do is give the body the right support to help the body feel loved and safe, and address the things that are causing the body to not be able to heal. And when you do that, it doesn't matter what label conventional medicine is put on it, it's gonna heal.
I go to the
Right.
cemetery in Morristown, one of the oldest cemeteries in town, and I'm amazed to see that there are babies they didn't live a month and they died. But then I'm looking around and I noticed that there's some other grave sites where there's people that lived over 100 years of age to 200 years ago. They were born 200 years ago, and these people lived and died and lived over 100 years of age. And we're supposed to be so much more advanced and live so much longer. I've heard people talk about statistics and say that people live so much longer today than they used to. And then I'm looking at so many babies that died at a young age, and we statistically average those babies' death to somebody that lived over 100, and we say, well, they lived an average life of 30. When that's not even true.
Yeah, I can see that. The infant mortality rate kind of
It's skewed.
skewed it a little bit, yeah. I think Western medicine has brought advances in the trauma side of things, for sure, but I don't think that on the chronic illness, if you look at the top 10 reasons why people die in America, they haven't exactly solved those yet. So we have to take ownership of our health in those areas, but if you're, you get in a car accident, you might need to go to the ER in the hospital, right? Trauma surgeons are there, and there's traumatic things that you can be supported by Western medicine. So I think there's a time and a place for it, but as far as your health goes in general, you just have to choose that which way feels right to you. Which way have you experienced, you've gotten answers and you've applied it and it's worked, and then you need to listen to that.
I had a client that she was taking more than 7 different pills. They had actually diagnosed her with ADHD, with sleep apnea, with high blood pressure, with diabetes, a bunch of other medications that she was on. And when we started talking, she was just traumatized. And I'm not a doctor, so I never told her to get rid of any medication, but I was like, what do you want to do? And she's like, I want to be able to live my life in a healthy way without all these medications. And I was like, okay, let's deal with the trauma. And within the month, she decided to go to her primary doctor and said, I wanna take this medicine, I wanna take this medicine. Well, you need it. And she was like, well, you may be saying I need it, but I don't want to. I'm dealing with my emotions. And within 3 months, she was out of all the medication. So when and months later, when we had a conversation kind of to wrap up our session, she was like, the day you said you're not sick, you're traumatized, something clicked in my brain that gave me permission to say, I'm empowered, I'm in control, I can do this. It has nothing to do with my body. My body's not wrong. I have to engage with it. So the second that we engage, we can heal.
Yes, healing can happen a lot faster than we think it really can. But you just have to get to the core belief is, can I heal? Because if you think you can, you can. And if you think you can't, you're gonna be right too.
And her parents have been telling her that she was crazy, that she was this, she was that. So she was absorbing that and making their core belief in addition to what the doctor was saying. So, okay, my parents, that is the very first relationship she had with what the doctor was saying, the professional, putting it together, it was like, so I must be crazy. So she felt bound and had to take these.
I had a phone call yesterday from a family member in Florida who also has a second home up in Illinois, and her sister, who lives in Ontario, Canada's husband's been suffering with very extensive complications of lymphatic cancer or lymphoma. And he has received every treatment the oncologist can come up with to give him treatment. And finally, in desperation, finally said, there's nothing more I can do for you. And he was in such bad health, everybody expected him to expire immediately. When they took him off the oncology drugs and he was at home waiting to die, he got so much better in the next 30 days, he was like his old self again. And nobody could figure out what's wrong with him. And so finally, after all of that, it's my understanding that the next step for him is to go back to chemotherapy again. And I'm thinking, well, okay,
It's their choice.
right, but
Yeah.
it's like, wow, he did so much better when he was off the chemotherapy. It's amazing, isn't it? The chemotherapy is a poison, it kills, and it kills,
Everything, good
it
and
kills
bad.
everything.
It-
We have to be careful.
Yeah.
They say, well, the chemo is tailored to only kill mostly the cancer. If that were so, we wouldn't get so sick.
Unfortunately, there's always a cost with
Yeah.
the intervention.
What do you think about the, reports that I've read and heard so much about that, sugar feeds cancer? Do you agree with that, that cutting carbs and all that from my diet would help take care of that?
I have a different perspective. I've heard of people healing cancer eating fruit alone. And fruit is just sugar, technically, but it's not refined sugar. So I think real food is important, but what drives glucose release in the body is one of the biggest things is stress. So when you're under stress, I did this with a Harvard group of students doing a math test. Without eating anything, they were stressed for this test. They took their urine samples and they had higher amounts of glucose in their urine. Because when your body goes into the fight or flight mode, the sympathetic nervous system side, it releases glucose to give you energy to deal with the stress. So, yes, there can be some physical benefit. When you eat real food, you're gonna be obviously eliminating refined processed sugar, right? Which refined processed sugar, again, is the wrong fuel for your body. So your body is going to break down faster that way. So I do believe that good whole food nutrition, as clean as possible, is a very wise choice because you're giving the body the right fuel. However, without addressing the stressors, you're still gonna have pushing out glucose, even if you're going, keto, carnivore, etc. So I don't think that cancer is a metabolic disease like I had originally read about, if that is, to answer that particular question.
Just as a side note, I
Yeah.
wear this thing, online monitor. 'Cause
Yeah.
I have stopped all my pills for type 2 diabetes. And when I undergo stress, I will get a peak. It'll spike my glucose. I could tell. I didn't eat, I didn't do anything, but I had stress then.
There you go.
And that happens.
So part of healing type 2 diabetes is, yes, your nutrition matters, right? But your stress matters too. To balance blood sugar, you want to look at your stress response, right? And this is why your nervous system is where that stress response happens, right? So these lights, they have done, you can look it up on YouTube, but there's a video of kids at school, like in a room like this, with the fluorescent lights on top. And they've got a camera and the kids are just like dashing all over the room, right? Like just all wired. They change the lights, more calming, and the kids are just more calm. And the speed of the children moving is just more calm. Because lights impact our nervous system. Right? So light impacts your metabolic health, your metabolism. So this is why it's in a way it's multifaceted. Light, food, nutrition, they do play a role. They do have an impact on your nervous system. It is true, and this is why I do teach those principles and believe they're important. But then you need to go deeper, especially if your body has been out of alignment for a while. You've got to go deeper to really reverse it and heal it. Great. Any other questions? Any other questions for you all?
If we have fluorescent light like you have in this room,
Uh-huh.
should we quit using it?
As much as possible, I would recommend that.
Why
Yes.
do you use it?
Because I don't own the building. However, I can change, what I am in control of is they do make these, the magnetic cloths.
Blankets, yeah.
That they put a, like a little amber filter, if you will, on them. And I've gotten a few, but I just need to get more for
Is
the
that like
rest
a
of the building.
magnetic amber cover, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Do you sell those?
No, they're on Amazon. I just need to get more of them to put around the other places. No, lights are very important, as much natural light exposure into your house in general, but you need direct exposure to natural light, like you need to actually be outside. Because our windows are designed to block UV light, right? To protect our furniture and all those things, but that also means we're not really getting the therapeutic support. So we really need to interact with nature as much as possible, but then especially after sunset, when it's dark outside, you wanna really minimize your light inside. And you can change out bulbs, you know, like, those are all things you can do. Change out to red bulbs or, yeah, depends on, there's so many options in that category. In my home office at the house, I just have a chicken brooder heat lamp, you know. You can go to Tractor Supply on the way home and you can get one of those and snap it in and use that. But
So how do you feel about walking on the earth naturally? How do you think that affects your body really?
yes, grounding
Yes.
is very, very helpful. It's one of the principles of connecting back to nature is literally connecting back. Because when you connect back, there's electrons that the earth gives you to support your body and your nervous system. It drops cortisol, it lowers inflammation, and increases blood flow.
How long do you need to do that?
30 minutes is a nice, like, I say minimum, but 30 minutes is where I have found that I can feel a difference. And there's a YouTube documentary called Grounding. There's one called Grounding, one called Earthing. They're very similar. But they do a side-by-side of your blood cells before and after grounding. And I wanna say it was like between the 30 and 40-minute mark when they could tell a difference literally in the flow. One was all sticky and clumpy, and then the after grounding, it was flowing. So I like the 30-minute mark, but you know, you can start with 5 minutes, start with 10 minutes.
So you just walk around in your yard?
You don't have to walk around. Some people, it's a texture or it doesn't feel comfortable. Like I recently moved and it's a newer construction, and so the grass is very pokey. You know, it's not really comfortable, which I miss the soft grass of my old place. But anyways, so I don't walk around in my new place. I more will like put a chair out, or I'll just sit on the grass and my feet are there. You can put your hands on the grass. It's just connecting your body back. So yeah, you can walk around in it, but you know, I like to just sometimes lay in it. I'll just take an afternoon nap outside, and then you get the sunlight, the fresh air, and just have as much of your body exposed to the earth.
I never go barefoot, not even at home.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
You can have grounding shoes.
You can, these are grounding shoes here, that I'm wearing right now, but I still like to take them off and put my feet on the grass. It's not that I don't trust these, but I just know nature works, right? And so the closer you can get to the actual earth, just the better off you'll be, so. Yeah. You're welcome.
So one takeaway I've got here is if I
those are
put
grounding shoes?
a fluorescent, filter on my fluorescent lighting and combine that with your bouncing machine over there, that trampoline,
Yep.
and that does grounding, or what is the technology of bouncing on a trampoline?
That's for your lymphatic system.
I see. So I've got this family member that's suffering with lymphatic lymphoma or lymphatic cancer. That would be a helpful thing.
It would-
Joe, hold it up.
Yes. Supporting the drainage of the lymphatic system is very important.
Yeah,
Also, while addressing the stressors in their life.
whatever that is.
Yes, probably a conflict.
Okay.
inside. A conflict is.
Thank you.
We do all these things, we just might
Can you
need.
tell a difference?
You will.
Yeah.
Yes. Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. For some reason, I'm trying to put my video on and it kind of goes off and goes on, so I'm not sure why. But I will answer your question. So from my perspective, that depression is simply a symptom it's not the root cause, there's a reason why that feeling is coming up, and so you wanna dive deeper into it and address the emotions around that. A great book, if you wanna dive deeper into this, is a book from a psychologist, A Mind of Your Own by Kelly Brogan. And she.
Sorry, it's A Mind of Our Own?
A Mind of Your Own, by Kelly Brogan.
Kelly who?
Brogan.
How do you spell that?
Brogan.
B-R-O-G-A-N.
But essentially, you apply the principles of the physical body, of good nutrition, movement, hydration, rest, circadian rhythm. Detoxification can become very important. But then, depression sometimes can be masked as a lot of things. It could be your need for respect. It can be that you're feeling grief and you're keeping it from getting expressed. And so it could be stuffed emotions that haven't had a chance to be experienced. And so I would encourage you to explore that before suppressing it and going numb with the pharmaceutical. Because in my experience with working with clients, when you suppress those symptoms with a pharmaceutical, it usually sets you back. Like, you're not getting the root cause, and then you also have to wean yourself off the pharmaceutical, and it can be actually very challenging to do that. There's a lot of side effects to that. So I would say that there's always something deeper, and you want to get to the root.
A lot of people take these drugs that are designed to be serotonin uptake drugs they call them antidepressant drugs, and they're one of the most widely used and most profitable drugs in the pharmaceutical industry today. They wouldn't like what you're teaching. But
Possibly.
why these serotonin uptake drugs, you don't need that if you do these other therapies that you're making specific reference to.
Correct. So, like, for instance, one way to naturally increase your serotonin levels is to get outside in the sunshine. Literally, interacting with the sun increases your neurotransmitters to produce serotonin. Like, this is why we all feel better after we've been outside on a sunny day, and why you can feel gloomy when we're inside on a rainy, cloudy day, because literally it shifts our mood, it shifts our nervous system. So I just encourage people to use the free medicine that actually works, because once you start suppressing it with other things, you're getting further and further away from the actual root, which just prolongs your healing journey. And you have a life to live. So the faster you can get to the root and resolve it, the more time you have to live your dream.
One of the things that isn't very encouraging is when you see the chart that lists the order of the things that causes the most deaths. Heart attacks are first, cancer is second, third is death by medical system. And the ones that are reported to go in to make that number third, how many doctors do you know of that would spend 5 hours to fill in a report to the CDC to say, I killed my patient?
And how many get unreported?
Yeah.
That's by John Hopkins that came out. The third leading cause of death in America is by people taking prescriptions exactly as prescribed, medical error. But it's far better to address it from the root so that you don't have to step into the conventional medicine model, because you were a beautiful example of that, right? You're leaving that model and finding your health again, which is really beautiful.
I was at the Mayo Clinic and asking questions about the number one cause of Alzheimer's. Mm-hmm. And they said that on the subject number 3, they said that overprescribing blood pressure medication to people who don't need it will interfere with getting enough oxygenated blood to your brain because your blood pressure is too low. And the second one is overprescribing antibiotics that kill your gut organisms and are not replenished with fiber and with probiotics and replenishing those bacteria that are killed by that. And the combination of those two things are, from their research right now, that probably the two most, they're the largest contributors to Alzheimer's and dementia. And of course, neither of those necessarily fit into what you're suggesting.
Well, to the degree that if you think about connecting back to nature, then you look at everything that goes in your body and says, is this from nature? If
Yeah,
it's not, then that's the part of connecting back to nature, is you eliminate all the things that are not in nature, that are not natural, then therefore it's toxic, right? So the more that you connect back to nature and you do this inner work, you won't need your medications anymore, and you're putting less toxins in your body. Therefore, your body's going to be better off for it, right? And then the risk of your Alzheimer's or dementia becomes less and less. So yeah, you do solve, again, when you heal whole, you heal it all. It doesn't matter what label per se, and you focus on principles over protocols, then you really get to the root a lot faster.
I moved to East Tennessee and I had problems breathing in the spring of the year with all the pollen.
Uh-huh.
I started using a nasal spray called 4-way nasal spray. Never found anything so effective in my life. Then I ended up in the hospital because I had extreme high blood pressure and they said it was the complications of 4-way nasal spray. So they treated my problem with blood pressure medication and I've never been able to get off of it.
Well, you can though, you can get off your blood pressure medication if you want to.
Well, I want to. I tried, okay, they said I can't take grapefruit, shouldn't eat grapefruit with some of my blood pressure medicine because it'll make my blood pressure too low.
Yeah.
So I went on a cruise and I forgot to take my blood pressure medicine and I was eating grapefruit every day. I was hoping I'd get off of it, but it didn't, I still had elevated blood pressure. But it could be that the emotional stress of living in a life where everybody wants to absolutely kill each other, it causes a little bit of an emotional stress.
There you go. You're getting closer.
Well, I asked my doctor about getting off blood pressure medicine, and he's not interested in helping. That is the only medicine I take, and it's like it annoys him that at my age, that's all I take. Why do I want to help you get off of it? It's the feeling I get when I go there, and it's like, so how do you get off of it without their help?
Well, part of what we do is our core program here with our staff is we have a team of coaches that work with you on the pillars that I kind of just went through. And we have a PA, a physician assistant, who you could see, and each month they could taper you off and you could be done with it. So you basically implement the changes needed to help regulate your blood pressure naturally, and then you would have a provider that would eliminate it for you.
Well, I have an older daughter that says, I know I'm the reason you're on blood pressure medicine, and I think she's probably right. So she's controlling herself much better than she used to. So it's like,
You're
okay.
giving her too much power, don't you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, no one can make you. We choose our reactions, so that would be very important. But you should check in with Joe afterwards, and if you want to go on a journey and you want to eliminate our core program. Usually it's a 6-month process, and yeah, you could do it. 6 months or less, right, Stephen? You can be off your blood pressure in 6 months or less. Yeah, you did it.
I'm off of all my blood pressure meds, and it's weird. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, but eventually, hopefully, it's gonna completely stabilize out. But in the last month and a half, 2 months that I've been off of it, I've actually seen normal blood pressure about 3 times. And that's with no meds.
So if
And
you have
that's the new standards, because they lowered it. So you have to be lower than we used to be when they originally put us on the meds.
Because my mother would say, used to, she's deceased now, but she'd say, what medicine are you on now? It's like she was even programmed to, at a certain age, you should be on 5 or 6 or 10 things, you know?
No, you can live without medication. Yes, but and that is true. The cultural conditioning is very strong in both blood pressure. Like, think about, we're one of 2 countries in the world that allow pharmaceutical advertising on TV.
Really?
It used to be against the law,
So,
but not anymore.
Well, I think the commercials are a deterrent, because here's this for this,
No, I'll give you
the next
diarrhea.
30 minutes they're telling you, can cause death, it can tear up everything else in your whole body. It's like,
Yeah.
well, who's gonna take that?
yeah. But you can heal. You can get off your blood pressure medication.
How many pills are you
Can
on?
you tell us the other country?
9 or something?
I want to say it's either New Zealand or Australia.
That's
what I'm
thinking too.
Yeah, I would have to probably look it up.
If it's New Zealand.
Cool. Any other questions?
Well, if you have a spouse or a family member that in chapter 1 of your class today would say something like, confronting that person and saying, "You get on my nerves," is that gonna solve the problem?
Probably not.
Starting with you is a bad
Yeah,
idea.
that's a bad idea. You might try with, when you say this, I feel this way. You might try compassionate communication and see what happens. You might, at least you'll get further along in the conversation. But part of it is also recognizing, again, no one else needs to change for you to heal. It's very, very important. Now, it may mean your relationship with that person changes, but that's okay. That's your choice. You are always in control. Whether we feel like it or not, we always have a choice. They may not like that choice, but they don't have to change for us to heal.
So we let them get on our nerves.
Yes.
That's the point,
100%,
isn't it?
yes, that's the point. That's the point. You can create a boundary if they're unhealthy and you ask them to change their behavior and you bring it to their attention and they choose not to, then you let them be who they are. And that's honoring and respecting them, but that doesn't mean that you submit yourself to that treatment, right?
Yeah.
That means that you create a boundary
So,
and
so
without
I'm,
guilt.
so I'm watching this great movie with Clark Gable and this love scene with this woman, and she says something to him, and he said, "You would say that." In other words, he was prepared for what was to come. And I'm trying to make a point, and the point is that we need to be prepared for maybe somebody that gets on our nerves and not let that get on our nerves.
I see, so you're saying make a plan of action in your mind of when they do what their normal pattern is for how you might respond in a healthier way? Is that what you're saying?
You already know they're gonna do what they do that gets on your nerves, so you respond in a way or adjust your feelings and emotions such that it doesn't get on your nerves anymore.
But sometimes that's dangerous because that will be mind reading. You really don't know verbatim what that person is going to say. However, yes, patterns we know, and we can choose to not be exposed to that person anymore.
And sometimes that means that we choose to leave the relationship because it's no longer healthy. So it doesn't mean that we just choose not to respond, because then in part that might be
You're shutting
suppression.
yourself down.
You're not speaking up when it bothers you, and that's a good way for your throat or your thyroid to get impacted. So if the idea is that you just choose, okay, well, I'm not gonna say anything because then it's gonna create a conflict, that's avoidance. You actually, to resolve it, you would say, well, this is not a healthy relationship, because if I express how I feel and what I need and the other person is not willing to grow or change, then this is not a healthy relationship. Right? It's not about perfection, but it's about two people growing and changing. And if they choose not to, then you have to decide, okay, am I willing to just accept them as there are? Am I okay living in this relationship like that? Is that okay? How do I feel about that? And if that bothers you and gets on your nerves every day, then you probably should leave the relationship, because you're not gonna be able to heal, because you're gonna be stuck in the sympathetic fight or flight mode.
How many women live longer than men? I mean, I notice a cultural, from the time you're a child, there's cultural difference between how often the female is raised differently than the male, in the sense that the male is trained by his macho father to be tough and suppress and hold it in and die young, while the female cries and screams and finds release somewhere.
Usually we choose to heal. Men choose to stay stuck in their core belief, and then they die because they're choosing not to say, this is the way my father brought me up.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be me.
Yes, it because of cultural conditioning, it can be harder for men to open up about their feelings and address things. So that can play a big
There's a
role.
group that meets at the country club that my wife played bridge with them for 3 decades. And they're at the country club, and I'm noticing that every one of them, every single last one of them that are about my wife's age, their husbands are deceased except me.
Dang.
I mean, I'm wondering if maybe something's killing these men.
Maybe they have crazy wives, maybe you got a good one.
Thank you all for coming. Are there any other questions before we wrap up? No? Okay. It was
Thank
good to see
you.
all. All right. Let's see. I don't see.
They are,